Welcome to Vino with Vito. Let's not forget Nina.
Hi.
And today we have Ralph DiBugnara.
Correct. Yes,
Hopefully
very
I
good.
pronounced
You got it right. Yeah.
Hopefully I pronounced your name right. Ralph is big on Instagram. He owns quite a few businesses and a lot with real estate. And we're going to talk a lot about that. And
We're going to learn a lot today.
We're going to learn a lot today. And I'm here to learn. And the big thing about anything is every day you want to learn something new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if you learn something new every day, that's how you get ahead. I have our wine here. This wine, Nina, I bought back from Italy.
Very
Okay,
nice.
I know you wanted to hear that. This is from Abrobello. It's actually a winery right in a small town. It's
Oh, you
called
went to that one too?
Yeah, Negramaro. We're going to try this. I know, Ralph, you don't drink.
Yeah, but we'll take a little.
We'll give you a little bit of wine here, more for us. And today, it was such a beautiful day out.
Beautiful, yeah.
It was nice and warm.
It's gorgeous. I
wore
know,
my
it's
new-
short sleeves. I had a turtleneck sweater on, not yesterday, the day before, and now I'm in short sleeves.
This is the northeast weather
That's it.
in the fall.
That's it.
And then you'll go to your car and it'll be 98 degrees
Yes.
in the car.
That's it. And today, I wore my new Robert Graham shirt.
I didn't notice.
Make an impression.
That's it.
It's very subtle. I didn't notice.
So Ralph, you're part of a mortgage company,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us how is the mortgage business today?
It's interesting. So I'm residential and commercial mortgages. The business right now from 2021 to now is probably 60 to 70% down. And 2020 and 2021 were heights for most people. But even from 2022 to now, in 2023 where we are right now, we're probably down 50%. And that's just because rates are higher. You're not going to see refinances yet. I think that stuff is coming, and I'll get to that. But if you're in the Northeast specifically, it's very hard to buy houses.
Yeah.
It's very hard. We have a huge inventory shortage. It's hard to get accepted offers. There's more programs than there's ever been, to be totally honest with you, and that's a good thing as far as down payment assistance and grants to get people into houses, but there's no houses. So that's the biggest problem right now. So it's interesting. I'm in the business 22 years, and this is a different market than I've ever experienced before, and I've been through some rough ones, but this isn't worse. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's just really a different market. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
There's one thing that I know they're changing come, I think it's November 18th, if I'm not mistaken, with multifamilies.
Yep.
Where you can put a lot less money down.
Yep.
And can you tell us a little bit about that?
So now you're going to be able to get into a 2 or 3 family home with 5% down, which is huge. Up to a 4 family actually with 5% down, which has never happened before for first time home buyers, especially. But outside of that, Fannie Mae, FHA, Freddie Mac have created all kinds of down payment assistance programs. Just in New Jersey, we have 3 that are either grants or down payment assistance, and not just for first-time home buyers, they're for anybody, that they can get between like $15,000 and $50,000 to buy a house. So that's something I've never seen before in this business, this many of them for normal people. Usually they're for people in areas that they're trying to promote home buying. But
right,
now
right.
It's everywhere because you guys know as well I do, I think real estate runs the economy in this country. So even though rates are up, they're trying to give people the reason to buy houses still. Mm-hmm. So that's something, these are the little things that are helping. Only 5% down on a multifamily, down payment assistance. So I still believe that it's a really good time to buy a house as long as it fits your budget, because when rates drop, ultimately, whether it's next year, the year after, the year after that, whenever that happens, there'll be another buying frenzy, and prices will be up even further.
Right.
So it's just, it's tough to buy in this market, but I still recommend doing it if you're looking, because you're going to get equity in your home that you wouldn't have had if you bought later.
Right.
It's a good thing.
Do you think the government, again, now they're trying all these new ideas again to get people into their houses?
Yeah.
This happened back in early 2000, and look what happened back then. Do you think we might see a little bit of that again? Or, because I remember back in, say, 05, people were coming, they're buying multifamily houses.
Uh-huh.
They're saying, okay, no money down, buying a house, putting closing costs in, couldn't afford the house.
For sure, yeah.
And they're banking on, the second floor. And meanwhile, the second floor
point.
moves, and now you can't
Yeah.
afford the house anymore. I'm getting a little concerned with the 5% down. Again, people are going to be banking on
Rental.
that rental.
Yeah. So I think the way the government's looking at it with these programs now is, so in 2005, 6, 7, up to that, it was really out of their control because it was mostly Wall Street investors and these subprime lenders that were kind of controlling that product. It wasn't really government run. I think what we have government forecasters, what they're looking at is that by default, over the next 2 years, in most places, you're going to get increased equity in your homes. Rent is going to increase over the next couple of years because we're in an inflationary market. We're in, high goods market, so rent's going to be up. So the way they're looking at it as that 5% isn't going to really be 5% in 12 months. It's probably going to be 10% or 15%. The rent that you're getting for market rent over the last 12 months is going to be up. So I think they're looking at these things as almost investments. Like, worst case scenario, these people aren't going to be in a terrible financial position to sell the home. Whereas before, the biggest difference between 05 and 06, before the crash, was you had an oversupply of homes. We had building all over the place, and we had easy access to capital. Now, even though there's down payment assistance, you still have to qualify. You have to show income. You have to show credit. It's a harder qualification process, and we're an undersupply of homes. There's no inventory. So I think those are the two biggest factors that will, make sure that we don't have another crash. But, what you said about people depending on rent is definitely, it's a very, very good point. And I hadn't thought about that exactly, but I think that's a good point. But I think it's a different market.
Okay, good. Well, salud. Look at Nina. She's soaking
I'm
this all
soaking
in.
it in.
She's learning a lot.
I was only 10 in 2005. So.
You know what? I think that's interesting, too, though, because I think that people who were adolescents in that market have a different relationship with money and home buying at this point than somebody who was from before then, right? Because by the time I'm 2005, I'm in the business already, right? So, I just look at the businesses. I've seen the cycles of it. But if the first memory you have of a market is it crashing, you kind of have a different feel about it in general,
Right. Yeah, it was tough back then. It was like a light switch came on.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, boom, the light switch came down. Nobody's buying houses anymore.
100%.
And everything just stopped.
Yep.
But I like how you said now the qualifications are different. And again, you're part owner in a mortgage company,
Yep.
Cardinal Financial.
Yeah, and at Home Qualify, which is really more of a commercial mortgage broker. So both.
So both.
Yeah,
So
the commercial side's a little scarier, but residential is a little bit more steady.
Yeah. We were talking about the commercial side on another podcast a couple weeks ago where we know those are coming due pretty soon.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, I think, scarier.
Very scary, yeah. That is a scary part of the market. But I also think that when something like 2007, 2008 happens, it's never supposed to happen again, right? You're supposed to put governors in so it doesn't happen again. So as cautious as they've kind of been with the rate raise and everything else, I think that we have enough governors in at this point where it doesn't happen again. But, I was shocked when it happened the first time. So I don't know everything.
Scary.
Yeah.
It was very scary. I mean, we would always talk about it, as realtors. Hey, how long can this go? How long can it go? And then, sure enough, we were done. We were done.
I think there's something else added to that too. That's just a little bit of a scary bubble right now. Is that credit card debt is at all-time highs, and again, not being spoken about. And credit card rates right now, during the low interest rate period, the average credit card rate was like 18-20%. Now they're in the high 30s.
Yeah.
People will drown in credit card debt. So I think the thing that's going on right now, which is why I think you're going to see refinances no matter what, because people are holding on to these 2 and 3% interest rates. We have to keep them. But if you have credit cards that are at 30%, 40%, and you can't afford to pay your bills, it's smarter to pay off that equity at 7 or 8% than it is at 30 or 40%. So correct. I think that will help the market move a little bit, whereas we're starting to see a lot more liquidation of properties because when people order payoffs on their homes to sell them, we get notified. So we're getting a lot of those recently because when we get the payoff quote, we call and say, hey, what's going on? I'm selling. Because people need the cash. Mm-hmm. So, I think that'll help the market move a little bit too. But the credit card bubble scares me a little bit because people got adjusted to a lifestyle over the last couple of years where they were making more money. Money was very, very cheap to come by. There was free money in the market between PPP and ERC credits and all those other things. And they're using their credit cards to keep that lifestyle, hoping the market comes back. And that necessarily doesn't happen.
What is great, when you get your credit card statement and it tells you how long it's going to, if you only pay the minimum payment, how long it's going to take to pay it off and how much interest you're going to be paying. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Yeah, and it's almost like, I tell people all the time, if you ever looked at your credit card amortized over a certain amount of time, it's like it's debilitating almost. Like, so it's not smart to carry that kind of debt if you can avoid it. You can avoid it. My husband hates using a credit card. Absolutely hates it. He's like, if you use a credit card, it means you don't have enough money to buy something, so you shouldn't be buying it.
He's got a very
but
good
you
point.
also need credit. And there's certain times you have to use a credit card, but
what I always do is, we use credit cards now for everything because you're getting the points and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
you get money back and
or
points.
whatever, right? But it's funny sometimes.
But again,
like,
see, they're giving you a lot of incentives to
use
the
that credit card. But now restaurants, you go to a restaurant,
They
they
charge
charge
now,
you.
like-
I think it's
like
like
4%.
3%.
Yeah, it's funny.
3 to 4%.
I agree. I'm back to carrying cash again all
Yeah.
the time. And I always kind of carried a little bit of cash, but like everything is processing fees now. So I'd rather just carry cash in most situations, even though you get the points. The big things I charge, but and for little things every day, I go to get a sandwich, something like that. I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
pay a processing fee.
Yeah,
So
I
I'd rather
always,
pay
right.
cash.
I always
Yeah.
do the same thing.
Yeah.
I always pay cash.
Now, what happens, when you go out with like a group of people and everyone puts in their credit card and they say split it, do they only charge you one time, or do you think they charge you
That's a good question. I'm not
multiple
sure.
times?
I know that
Probably got to be multiple, I guess.
Because it's a processing fee for each one.
I know credit card
Oh.
processing is a big business to the point where the credit card processors are almost kicking back the business owners money a lot of the time. Hey, if you use our services, we'll give you 1% back or whatever it is. So it's big business. That's big business.
Now, do you have a lot of people, when they put offers in on homes, do they do the 20% or 15% and then
Good question. Yeah.
drop it down?
As for the offers,
Yeah.
I'm sure they do. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure you're seeing a lot of that. Offers are going in one way and they're coming back another. Or, I always, it's funny, when I was out in the market, especially the last few years, there's more cash. I'm sure you see this too.
Yeah,
we don't know
Everybody's
where
buying
everyone
cash.
gets their
Where's
money
all this
from.
cash coming from?
And
And
it's all underneath the mattresses.
Yeah,
They finally taken
I
them out.
warned every single realtor about that. I was like, ask for proof of funds. Ask to see the bank statements where the cash is coming from, because everybody says cash. I could get you 5 letters in 2 minutes that say we're holding cash for this. That attorneys or hard money lenders or somebody at least do. You really should be looking how you're really qualifying that cash. Do they really have the money in the bank? Because that's a problem too, right? But I think what I tell people that what we try to do is we'll do approvals, not pre-approvals. We'll do approvals on people on a loan before they go out and look for a home. So we'll actually do a loan commitment instead of just a pre-approval that they can shop with. So when they go to somebody, they say, hey, this is a real loan commitment. The bank already reviewed my income, my credit, my savings, everything that has to do with me, and I'm putting this much down, and this is an actual loan commitment for them. And then all we need is appraisal, homeowners insurance, and title report.
Okay.
So that's a good way to shop if you're a customer. And if you're selling a home, that's a good thing to ask for. Can you get me a loan commitment? Because we don't need an address to get a loan commitment. It could be
Right.
to be determined. So that's a good way to ask to get a really qualified offer. And I tell people, this is as good as cash because you're qualified.
Right, you're qualified, you're already there.
As long as the house passes
appraises.
muster,
Right,
you're
right.
fine.
Yeah.
And,
But is it, if they're going to drop, say if they have the 20% put down, they get pre-approved, they actually get their commitment with the 20% down, and then they're like, you know what, now I want to hold back some money, I have to do repairs.
happens a lot, yeah.
But is it
You know,
better
it's
to
funny.
do it before the commitment comes in or after the commitment
So
comes in?
sellers don't
if you're
usually-
going to do it.
Sellers, it's probably better to do after the commitment.
After the commitment.
The
That's what
sellers
I
won't
think,
keep
Because
reviewing.
they don't really care. As long as they get the
As long
commitment,
as
they
the
kind
money,
of don't
as long
care.
as the money's there
Right.
at the table, nobody's asking the question again. So I think it's better after the commitment, get the commitment, and then change it.
Yeah.
The thing right now for us, and I think for most people, is that loans can be processed a lot faster these days than they used to be. It's not a 30-day process unless there's something wrong. It should never be that
Right,
long.
a
It should-
couple of weeks. You're
Yeah.
already
Yeah,
happy.
it's a lot easier to. You don't have. I mean, people want to meet face to face with stuff still, but a lot of the times it's over email, and it's just easier to process loans now than it used to be. So you should be able to move fast, even if you have to do that.
But now, Nina, if you do like you said, okay, I'm putting 20% down, I got a commitment, and I'm going to go and I put an offer on the house. Now you decide, okay, I don't want to put 20% down.
Yeah.
I only want to put 15 or 10% down. And all of a sudden, you try that with the bank, and the bank comes back and says, denies you. No, I can't give you that
Sure.
loan.
Yeah.
You need that 20% down. And now say the customer decides, I don't want that house anymore, and comes back and says, I got a denial. Well, it isn't going to work because they put on the contract
Yeah.
20%
Right,
down.
and they already had the...
And they already
Yeah.
had the
You can
commitment.
forfeit.
Right.
You can forfeit your deposit because
Yeah.
now you changed what
You
you
changed
wanted
the terms,
to do.
Yeah,
right.
the one thing I know.
Because technically you would need a new contract if you're going to change the terms because, right?
They'll ask for an addendum.
Just
They
an
will ask for an
addendum.
addendum to the
Right.
contract, but I
Even
will,
before you have the commitment, it's just an addendum with the attorney?
even after the commitment, it's an
Okay.
addendum. No matter where in the process, they're going to ask for. An
I mean,
addendum.
I'm sorry, before the commitment. That's what I meant.
Yeah, they'll
before.
ask for something adjusting something that was. If anything get changes on contract, they'll ask for an addendum to the contract. What you're starting to see now a lot more is waiver of appraisals and
Yes.
inspections again. So I tell people all the time, if you're going to waive those things, make sure you have a mortgage contingency.
Do you ever waive them? Like, does the bank ever waive
No,
them?
they don't. So
Okay.
that's what you should tell somebody because the bank's never going to waive it. Well, I take that back actually. There is such thing as an appraisal waiver from banks.
Right.
But we'll know it up front.
Yeah.
So as soon as you give us an address,
it's on that pre-approval,
Immediately,
whatever you
yes.
send in, it says it's, but it's not
it's
100%.
waived.
It's
No, it just depends on where the house is,
Yeah.
and it usually depends on the down payment.
But I'm saying you could still get the appraisal waiver, and then something
Sure.
can change in your credit or something,
Could
and then
be,
it changes.
It changes everything.
Right?
But usually we'll know as soon as you give us the address if you get an appraisal waiver or not. But if you're going to waive an appraisal, make sure you have a mortgage contingency, because even if you waive the appraisal and the appraisal comes back short, the mortgage is still able to be denied.
Right.
So you still can issue a mortgage denial at that point. So it's a good kind of loophole.
Even
to
if
get
you
around
have
it.
enough of a down payment to cover for it?
Yeah, I mean, if they have enough assets, then no, you can still qualify,
Right,
but it
you
just
gotta
depends.
qualify.
Yeah, so I think you just have to be informed up front. Like, especially a lot of times, like, hey, you have to waive mortgage, you have to waive appraisal, you have to waive inspection. They almost never ask you to waive the mortgage contingency. Like, I've never seen somebody get it. I think once I've seen that.
Yeah. I had one where it was actually for my daughter. She was buying her house, and the guy didn't want to move out until we had a mortgage commitment. So I told the guy, look, don't worry about it. The mortgage is going to be fine or whatever. No, I want a commitment before I'm even attempting to move out. So I said, I'll tell you what. I'll back it. We'll waive the mortgage commitment.
Yeah.
You can move out now.
Yeah.
Usually you don't want to do that
Yeah,
unless
yeah.
you know you're guaranteed
Your
you're
last
going to
resort,
get
yeah.
for your last resort.
Sure, yeah.
But we ended up doing that, and the guy was able, to start moving out.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? If
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
nervous and you're a seller.
Oh yeah, I had him pulled the last minute. The mortgage commitment pulled
Yeah,
the
no,
last minute.
I even say to people, if you're going to waive inspection or waive appraisal, still do them, and tell the seller it's for informational purposes.
Of
Of
only.
course.
That's
Like,
it,
don't
yeah.
you want to know what your home is worth?
Correct. Yeah, and
Even if you are
inspections-
waiving it or bridging the gap or whatever you're doing,
Yeah,
you just want to.
I will tell you now, we're losing a lot of deals in attorney review or after attorney review because of inspections right now, because it's
glad you brought that up. Go ahead.
because people, when rates were low, bad inspection didn't deter somebody from buying the house. They're
Right.
like, oh, I'm getting a good rate, I got to go through with it. When it's
Or the seller would say, goodbye. You
Correct.
want to ask for that? That
Yeah,
I have
you're
10
out.
other
Yeah.
offers that.
when prices are high and they're overpaying and rates are high and you're overpaying your monthly payment, bad inspections enough to scare people off at this point now. So a lot of times they're either trying to negotiate or they're just saying, I don't want to do anything at all. So that's different in this market than the last couple of years, that people are actually backing out because of inspections.
Right. I noticed it happening again.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought it up, where people are coming back where they take the home inspection report, they give it to the attorney. Okay, let's go through it. No, I want everything.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. Why do you want? Well, I'm overpaying for the house.
Yeah, if they want
The
their money
rates-
back.
Right.
Then
The
whatever
rates
they,
are high,
yeah.
whatever. We want it back. Well, you'll get it. The seller says no. Boom. The deal's
Yeah.
dead and it goes back.
Yeah.
But I noticed that happening back in '07, right before the crash.
Crash, yeah.
And I try to explain that
That's
to
interesting,
all
yeah.
the agents. I say, look, something's going to happen. Something's got to break.
For sure,
We
yeah.
don't know when. It could be next
Doesn't matter
year.
how
it could be-
perfect the house is,
Right,
it's
how
gonna be
perfect.
something.
Something's gonna go. So just
I
be
had clients,
careful
they
out
went
there.
I think they went $18,000 over asking, and the appraisal, we knew the appraisal was going to come back low. We just knew it was, the house was priced so high, and it was high to begin with. If they went they went over because they went in during attorney review and like bumped somebody out, so they went high. And then after the inspections, they asked for just $18,000.
18,000, whatever they
They
want.
want
up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, you can't just ask for $18,000 and not back it up. He's like, I want my money back.
Back.
No, even on new houses, you have stuff to go. I just
Oh, yeah.
inspected a new house recently, and the sewer line, which I just started inspecting, by the way, was an expensive lesson to learn. I inspected the city sewer line connection. It's like a $200 cost.
Yes, I just had one of those.
And it was broke on a pretty much 5-year-old house, the city line connection from the sewer. So I had that problem in one of my multifamilies.
And what made you do that, though?
Because I had a problem in Hudson
Okay.
County in a multifamily, and it was a
Like some-
$50,000 job.
Wow.
So it was a hard lesson to learn. We kept getting water, and I couldn't figure out why. This is in North Bergen, New Jersey. All the streets there pretty much still have clay pipes in the street.
Oh.
So
Oh,
once
wow.
they go, and they don't cover any of the city doesn't cover it at all. So it was a mess, and it took me 3 months to get it fixed, and it was just like they had to break the street up. But with a $200 inspection, I would have seen before I moved into the house
Yeah.
that there was a problem. So I never make that mistake ever again.
Money well spent.
Yeah, money well spent. Yeah, it's a cheap inspection.
The same as like with an oil tank. Some people
Yeah.
say, "Hey, they told me there's no oil tank. Check anyway."
Yeah, check anyway. You're right.
Yeah, but look, one of the
You
girls in
never
our
know.
office, she had a house. They were doing inspections. It was septic. The whole septic system was not working.
have to do a septic
So the
system.
seller, I think, offered them maybe like $15,000, and the buyer wanted to take it because he just wanted the house, and she
Yes,
was
I
like,
remember
absolutely not.
Kelly.
And then
Yep.
it turned out they said they'll do the repairs. It cost them, I think, she said, what, $40,000 to repair the whole thing, and he would have
Yeah.
had to do that. He would have taken the credit and then would have had to put
These are
out
little
all that
things.
money.
Plumbing and electric are very expensive.
Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
you know more than better.
Right,
Yeah.
and we try to explain that to buyers or sellers. Then you'll get sometimes like a seller, he got $100,000 over asking on his house. They do a home inspection. They come back with, the buyer comes back, instead of a laundry list, this is going a few years ago with the 2% interest rates. And they come back and they say, okay, I just would like this and this repaired. Forget about the 20 items. And then you get the seller, I'm not doing
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got $100,000 over
yeah.
asking.
They're getting greedy.
This is
Well, they
going
were
to be
greedy.
They get
maybe
greedy, yeah.
$1,000 worth of
Greedy,
repairs.
yeah.
Are you
It's
willing?
not a reasonable
And you're
thing.
not selling the house as is. If you're selling it strictly as is, or it's an estate or something, and you put it out there, okay, but
Yeah.
you're not selling it as
No, I
is.
agree
Just
with
make
you.
the little repairs.
You have to be willing to negotiate off that stuff. It depends how much hassle you want, but
Right,
it's tough to make sellers understand in this market too because of what's
And
going
do you
on.
want to start all over with a new offer?
That's the
you
biggest
know?
process. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to start all over?
For what? How much was it? How much were they asking for?
It was like two items. I think it was like $1,000 or
Yeah.
$1,500.
Yeah.
Right,
No,
that
I'm not
whole
giving
process.
them anything. You know, you want me to give it to them? You just got $100,000.
Did they end up
over.
doing it?
I didn't raise it, of course.
Yeah.
I put it, to them. Look,
Yeah.
the next closest offer wasn't anywhere near 100. So,
Yeah.
do you want me to ask the other guy to come
Right.
back and then he'll ask you for $50,000 worth?
Yeah, it's to do
All right,
something.
Vito. Since you put it that way, let's.
Yeah,
do
let's-
it. But that's
It's
where
true,
you need a realtor, and experience comes from realtors. You got to be the middleman.
Yeah, I
because
agree.
If you going and buying it direct, it's easy to say, F you, I don't want to do
Yeah.
it, and then think about it afterwards. But
We did an inspection on a house, and they bought it as is. And the inspector's going through everything, and I'm explaining stuff and reiterating what the inspector's saying. And then finally, after like 20 minutes, the guy's like, I'm a mechanical engineer. He's like, no, I know. I'm like, oh, I mean, you could have told us that from the beginning.
Right.
Ahead of time.
We're like, even the inspector was laughing. He's like, why did you say something? He's like, I'm explaining it in the simplest terms possible. He's like, I didn't know you understood everything.
you couldn't do that. But yeah, it's insane. By the way, the wine's
It's very good.
It's very,
It's very, very
huh?
good.
Ah,
Yeah.
see, Abrobello, you make a
My
good
headache's
wine.
going away.
Make it on mine. The headache's gone already.
Heels.
But Ralph, I know other stuff that you do is you buy and hold, you flip houses,
Yeah.
and
Just super easy to do, right?
Yeah.
very easy to do. And I always tell everybody, if it was easy, everybody would be doing
For sure, yeah.
it.
And the houses that are sitting that no one's buying are the people that thought it was easy.
Oh, you're right.
Can't sell
It's
their
not.
And they can't sell their house.
Yeah.
What do you recommend for somebody coming out and saying, hey, you know what, I want to start buying investment properties, fixing them, holding them, collecting rent? Is it as easy as HGTV?
No, so I made all the mistakes I possibly could make the first time go around before '08, and I lost a lot in '08 just because, for a bunch of reasons, but the biggest reasons were, if I was to advise somebody today, the two things I would tell them most is, buy something you plan on holding long term, and you can hold long term, and have an exit strategy. And I had neither. And holding real estate long term will outrun all your mistakes. Like all the stupid things I've done with real estate, as long as I was able to keep that property for a length of time, it's worked out for me. And I have an example. I had a few properties in Naples before the crash, and what I was doing at that time, which was very, very hot, was I was buying stuff pre-construction. They were building everywhere. I was buying stuff pre-construction. I was flipping the contract before it even was finished. So I was doing that over and over again, which is great until the market crashes. So two of the properties I owned were worth like 30 cents on the dollar before they were finished. So I paid $230. They were worth like 70. It was a nightmare.
Wow.
So one of them I was able to get rid of. I just took a huge hit on, and the other one I couldn't afford to get rid of it, so I just held it. So I still own it. So this is 2005. 2005 I originally went into contract. I own it since 2007. It was finished. I bought it for $220. It was worth $70 at some point. It's now paid off and it's worth like $410, but it's it's almost 20 years. So
Yeah.
the point being is that I was able to outrun my stupidity by holding it and renting it, right? So I think if you're going to get into the business now today, find something. The first property I would buy, period, would be something I can live in and rent at the same time, because it's the easiest risk averse way to do something is to cover as much of the payment as I possibly can. And then I would
People not like that though.
I think less and less people like that. I think that buying real estate is.
As soon as they find out the owner lives there, they're like, forget it.
Yeah, you're almost right. I think it's compromised, though, right?
I know. I would be like, never mind.
You know what, though? Right now, it's so hard to find rental properties that people are willing to do it. It's so crazy.
The multiple offers, the outbid, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, just to find some place to live for a renter is a difficult thing right now.
Oh, yeah. The
People
rents
are offering like 4 months, 5 months, 6 months in advance, a year in advance.
I have properties now that I was getting what I thought could rent for 3 units, and now I'm releasing 2 units. I'm getting more for the 2 units than I was getting for all 3 at some point and that's how much rent is up right now, as long as the tenants are getting out. So, but that's those, and then having some kind of exit strategy, because when the market crashed, the problem was I didn't have a proper exit strategy, so I was stuck. As long as you can get out of them, whether you're going to sell it, you're going to rent it, you're going to refinance it, something to give you money back. Those are the mistakes I made for sure. So I was telling anybody to do it. As long as you're willing to hold something long term, you can figure it out. It's an asset. And the truth be told is that it's still been the best investment for me over time. Better than stocks, better than high yield savings, better than crypto, better than I've still done better with real estate than anything else because I think it's more predictable than almost anything else. As much as it moves, it doesn't move at the same speed that some of these other things move at. So I still think it's the best investment as long as you kind of go in with your eyes open.
Yeah, I knew somebody that started buying I think it was in the 80s or 90s when the market was really, really low, all investment properties. And he bought a ton of them, and kept them. And now he's letting them all go. He says, you know what?
Is it you?
I have no. It wasn't me.
Oh.
But if you're right. It's a good time to sell. I met with somebody yesterday. He's an older guy. He lives in Fort Lee. He lived in Fort Lee. He owns a few commercial buildings. I went to look at one of his properties. They're all paid off. 1.7, 1.8,
Wow.
2.2. You know what I mean? He's like, how long am I going to keep them for? And I was like, you're right. If I was you, I would be out. For me, I'm looking into my properties that the value's up a lot in the last couple of years, and I'm just like, yes, it's a good cash out, but they're also good rental properties because rent is so far up. So it's, there is no perfect answer. I guarantee whatever I do, I'll second guess it in 5 years that I could have done this.
Right,
this,
I could have did this. I should have did that. I should have did this. I remember back, it had to be, early 80s. And, I just got out of high school or whatever, and I wanted to buy property. And the first thing my parents, and again, being Italian, are you going to get a mortgage? What are you, crazy?
Crazy, debt.
Yeah.
They don't like
You're
debt.
going to have debt. We pay cash for everything.
Everything, yeah.
Come on, get out of here. And meanwhile, I'm like, no, this is the way to do it. And, again, I was convinced not to do it because what do? You listen.
Yeah,
you listen to your
ultimately
parents.
you listen to them,
to your parents. And I remember they bought, we came from Italy in 67. I think in 1969, they bought their first house. And it was cash, 2-family. Years later, they bought another 2-family because now we needed a bigger house. And again, it was cash. But back then, you're talking 11,000,
Right,
30, 40,000.
Yeah.
It was different.
800,000.
Yeah.
But I told them even at the time, I said, why don't we, instead of paying 40,000 in cash and borrowing a couple thousand from here, from a relative, so you don't have
from
to.
relatives.
Yeah, that's how they did it. Why don't we buy 3 or 4 houses? Put 5, 6, 7,000.
You're right.
And get mortgages on them. Again, no.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to owe money.
They don't want to owe money.
Yeah.
But now today, I tell my kids, hey, if it's a good investment, do it.
Yeah, you
Go
have
to
to
the
look at
bank.
stuff that way.
You
You're
got to
right.
look at it that way.
No, and on the way in, I was talking to Chris about cap rates, and he's like, "What's cap rate?" And I don't necessarily look at things in cap rates. I look at return on my money. So if I'm putting $100,000 in, what am I earning on that $100,000 year over year? So if I'm earning between 10 and 15%, then it's a great investment, right? And I really look at things that way because the money's not doing me any good sitting in the bank. If I'm going to sink it into equity, because it sits in equity too, I just want to make sure I'm getting the return on my money that I want to get. So I always look at things like that. Like there's 2 properties right now that are Airbnb properties right now that I'm looking to sell because the market changed in those areas. I'm not getting the same return on my money as I was getting. Their equity is up. So it makes sense for me to like those are a clear picture, but there's a lot of properties that are not a clear picture. I have no idea what to do, but those are easy decisions.
Did you ever get Airbnb renters or people that destroy your house?
So I've been through. I can give you a million stories.
I'm always so negative.
Yeah, I can give you a million stories.
This negativity.
I've had damages, but not crazy damages. But we're pretty particular about who we let rent. So it's 25 and over. You have to have at least one review. that you've stayed before and you have a good
okay.
review. And we don't let anybody instantly book. We have to pre-approve you. So they request the booking for the property. We review their profile. We send them an email like, hey, what are you looking to rent the property for? They write back, oh, it's a 40th anniversary, whatever it is, right? We have a very strict no policy, but again, I'm sure the stuff still goes on.
No bachelorette parties.
No bachelorette parties. And listen, we've had a bachelorette party before, but it was just, it was small, whatever it was. But I'm pretty particular who I rent to at this point. So that helps. I'm also mostly in vacation areas. I think that that's the best way to have an Airbnb property is to be in a vacation area, because I think that vacation areas, for the most part, have always been Airbnb markets. They just weren't called Airbnb.
Right.
The Jersey Shore has always been an Airbnb market, but it wasn't called Airbnb.
Airbnb.
So,
Right,
and then you get more families there, and you get more people who are used to renting properties this way, and it kind of turns out better. So I've had issues, trust me. But for the most part, that's how I kind of gauge against it. And then I don't let people rent over 30 days. They can only rent for 29 days if they want a long-term rental. So there's like little things.
Yeah.
Pets have become something you kind of have to allow.
Right.
Yeah.
So many people.
You have to allow
so
pets.
many people have pets, and
So
it's
that's
very hard to find someone that. Well, it's just regular rentals, like
yeah,
long-term
that'll
rentals.
take it, yeah.
That will take your pet.
Yeah. I'll
even
take
if you're
dogs. I
willing
won't
to
take
pay
cats.
extra.
Yeah, but we charge a pet fee, and we have a waiver in there for damages. But you have to document everything. We have our cleaners take pictures when they get to the house and when they leave the house after they clean it. So just in case there's damages, we then have proof to go back to. And Airbnb and VRBO have gotten better at protecting the owners. So if you send them proof, especially because we do all our communication through the apps mostly. If you do through the Airbnb app, they can track the whole conversation. So it's no he said, she said. So a lot of the stuff is like, hey, here's the pictures from before. Here's the and we just had a case like this. Here's the pictures from after, because somebody checked into the house. We had somebody rent my property in North Carolina, which has a boat slip. They misunderstood that it didn't fit certain types of boats, even though it says it in the description. So 2 days before they were checking in, they had a problem. So you can cancel at that point, but we can't give you a whole fee. It's a percentage.
Because it was written on there, they just missed it.
Correct, exactly. It was in clear. So we knew this person was upset coming in. They get there first day, they contact the Airbnb. Oh, there's insects in the house, there's a broken this, there's sand all over the place, all this stuff. So at that point, I'm just like, hey, you know what? Charge them for the night, just get them out of the house, because I don't want to have somebody in the house that's going to cause issues anyway. Yeah. But, the conversation we had with Airbnb was like, hey, we're going to give them the money back, but we don't want any kind of reviews based off of the stuff they're saying because it's untrue. So, of course, we gave them the money back, and they wanted more money back, which we didn't do because we didn't have to.
Now, can you prevent them from giving you a bad review?
Well, it's a good question. That's the point I'm getting to. So they then wrote a bad review anyway. So we contacted Airbnb. This is the whole conversation. These are the before photos. These are the after photos. We had to escalate it, and they came back and they took the review down.
Oh, they can do that.
They can do it, yeah. So this person had one review, and they had been on the platform for like 7 years. We have, 360 reviews, and none of them had said this before. So I was able to get it taken down. But you got to be careful because there's professional short-term rental renters where they get into the house. They're like, I want a discount. I'm going to say this, this, and this, and I'll get money back. I'll give you another example. We had a house. I have a house in the Poconos. It was... People got to the house, there was no hot water this weekend. Just crazy, whatever happened. We sent the emergency services out, they fixed it, but I refunded them the night. Because that's a legitimate thing, right?
Yeah, and it disrupted their stay a little bit.
1,000%. So, I'm pretty quick to refund because I'd rather lose the night than because bad reviews will crush you. So I'd rather lose the night than get a bad review. So in that situation, it was warranted. So it works both ways, but some people are looking for a discount, and you can tell from before they even check in. They're looking for a discount.
Are you allowed to have cameras in the house?
Only outside.
Only outside.
So I have cameras.
So you can't have cameras inside and let them know there's cameras in the living room?
No cameras inside allowed at all. So outside, I have a front camera and a back camera in every house always. If there's more space, then sometimes more space than that. But you can't have inside cameras.
Inside cameras.
Yeah. So with Ring cameras, you do as much as you can. Sometimes you get to the house and they figure out there's cameras and you see stuff get disconnected immediately and you have to message them politely. So it's there's all these little things. I mean, now at this point, we own them for a little bit over 3 years, so I could definitely write a book, and I have a decent amount of them, so it's all kind of different issues. But yeah, it's an interesting game. It really is.
It's easy being a Airbnb landlord. Well,
it's simple. Yeah.
Tomorrow, let's go buy some
people,
Airbnb properties.
Well, I had someone, they did the Airbnb, and they had a fireplace that they've never used, and I think he's owned the house for like 15 years. and they tried to light a fire. The rug caught on fire. The floor caught on fire. And they tried to hide it. They took the rug. They put something out. They went out and got a cheap rug. They put the cheap rug in front of the fireplace. Like, no one was going to notice that the floor was
burnt, right?
Only your friends, right?
I tell people all the time, it's bigger risk, bigger reward.
He didn't light it on fire. My friend owned the house.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It wasn't my friend that lit it.
But yeah, it's more money, I think, you make more money on them if you have a good one, but it's definitely a lot more work. Yeah, it's a lot more work.
We actually stayed at an Airbnb in Italy last month, and it was great.
It's great.
I mean, we had a great location. Place was brand new.
And you get great hosts sometimes.
The guy lived like upstairs. I mean, it was great.
Yeah.
You know. Now, what do you do for like if somebody comes and say they're going to stay there 5 days? Mm-hmm. Do you supply towels for 5 days?
Yeah,
what do you do? You
towels, toiletries. Anything in the house, sometimes you get a call. It's like, hey, you guys are running out of soap, and we'll just Amazon or Instacart it over.
Really?
Yeah. So people.
I would just go buy the soap.
Yeah, a lot of people ask still. Some people buy stuff. A lot of people ask still.
Some people are just.
Yeah, but we provide everything. We give a bottle of wine when they check in with the. So we try to. Listen.
If it's a good bottle of wine.
We get a bottle of wine. A refund too if we make a fuss. It's good.
Yeah, it's good.
The wine was no good.
The wine was. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to give you a bottle of wine. You know too much. But you're essentially a concierge. Like, you have to act as a concierge. You got to tell them what the local attractions are, where they should be going, what they should be doing. But we try to be as thorough as possible. What I'm starting to do in some of my houses is when you check in, you scan the QR code when you walk in and you get a tour of the house. This is the washing machine. This is the sink. This is the microwave. This is how you use everything. This is where all the supplies are.
Oh, that's
so
smart.
I'm starting to walk people through the houses. So we're slowly doing that at
Instead
every
of them
house.
ruining your appliances, trying to figure out how to use
sending.
things.
My wife is the host, so I don't get to take a lot of these questions. She does, but instead of them sending 100 messages, you know what I mean? We have, YouTube TV in every single house, so you have all the cable channels essentially of where's local. I try to do as much as possible to make it homey, but I will tell you, saying all of that, the best thing you can do with an Airbnb property is have a property in a place where they want to be outside of your house a lot. The more attractions that are local, the better chance you have they having a good time, right? Right. So I have a house in Seabright, New Jersey. I'm a half a block I'm across the street from the beach. I'm literally the firehouse. I'm across the street from the firehouse. The house is nice. It's not like the nicest house in Seabright, right? But when you go to Seabright, you park your car. You can walk to the restaurants. You can walk to the bars. You can walk to the beach. All the children's attractions. I very rarely have somebody have a bad time, if ever, there, because it's a nice experience locally.
Unless it rains all week, maybe.
Unless it rains, yeah. But locally, it's a nice experience. So that's my best advice. Find a place where the center focus is not your home. Because when that happens, it makes a lot more scrutiny on little things.
Yeah.
Right.
So, that's the best way to do it.
And now you have a group of people. You said your wife's the host, but you have like contractors.
I've helped,
cleaning people. You have.
Yeah.
So you got to have a lot of people basically on the payroll.
Yeah.
Do you have certain people that repeat like certain weeks
now
and
I
stuff
do.
like down
Yeah,
the
now
shore?
I do. Like now we have a lot of repeats, which is great.
Yeah.
That's the best thing ever. And what we do is that the cleaner goes to the property after the person checked out and they left the house in order. We always send them an email that says, hey, we told you we were a very good guest. Here's a 10% discount for next time. So I want those people to come back. Right? So we pretty much rent everything through the platform still, like Airbnb, VRBO, but some people will come back and say, hey, I want to rent directly, which is great. I try to do it the first time through the platform because you want the insurance that they provide to you.
You want all that, like
communication.
Your communication.
Yeah. If I don't know you, I don't want to rent it to you. So it's good that they protect you on that. But yeah, you start to get a lot of repeat people. Cleaners are very important. The cleaners, we use a service called Turnover B&B. So Turnover B&B basically is attached to my Airbnb calendar. So when we attach a cleaner to it. When somebody checks in, they get notified. When somebody checks out, they get notified. So they're on an automatic schedule without us having to do very much, which is great. So I can automate that process pretty much. Maintenance is different. You have to have.
And does Airbnb not supply? I know
it's a connection to them. Yeah.
Okay.
It's through them. So that's great. And then the cleaner hooks up right to they're signed up to Turnover B&B. That's how they get paid. The money comes in. It goes right out to them. There's no money. I see it, but I don't have to touch it. So that's great.
Now, what kind of deposit do you let the people put in there? Sometimes a couple $100.
So Airbnb takes upfront money, and then they take money the day they check in. So that they immediately have to put pretty much half, and then they take money. If we have special fees, like we have a pet fee. There is some kind of security deposit that they hold, but they have to release it too. So it's really all done through them. There's not too much you do on your own. I rent through Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, which is not as good because it's not as much protection on there. But we rent through Booking.com. We rent through a site called PeerSpace. PeerSpace is renting your home for events, get-togethers, office meetings, stuff like that. So I have a couple of properties, photo shoots, video shoots. I have a property in Miami that they rented for an MTV show, which was great because they pay per hour when they do that. So that's amazing. I rent through a website called Furnished Finders. Furnished Finders is for traveling nurses and doctors. So they're great because they usually get a stipend. And the money comes directly, so they usually rent for a week or two at a time.
Yeah.
They're really good guests because they're never in the house either.
Right, they're always working.
Wow.
So that's a really
I'm
good one,
learning
too.
a lot of
Yeah,
stuff
so-
here
so
today.
wait, what was the Peer one?
It's called PeerSpace.
PeerSpace.
So you can go look on that. Like if you want to do if you're like, hey, I need to do a photo shoot, I need a house. You can go on PeerSpace. You find places that location that do it all the time. So we do that.
I'm gonna forget.
Yeah,
I'm putting it in my
and
phone.
Furnished Finders is a really good one too. So I rent through a few different platforms, but I still say Airbnb is probably 75% of where we rent. It's still the biggest one.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you're happy doing with all the Airbnbs. And,
Yeah, it depends on the day. Today I'm
just
happy.
gonna say, today you're happy. Tomorrow you.
Today's Wednesday. Friday I was not so happy. Today I'm happy. Yeah, it can be crazy sometimes.
How about your multifamilies, your rentals?
Yeah.
What would you tell people thinking about buying a multifamily and renting them out? What are the pros? What are the cons?
Yeah.
What do you?
You really
what
got to
do you
vet your
see?
tenants up front. Like it's very, very important that you know who you're renting your house to. And friends and family are not always the best thing.
What about when you have to get a place and the tenant just signed their lease 2 months prior and they have to stay?
So I
You can't get rid of
I
them,
bought a
right?
property that was occupied, but it was good tenants. I kind of vetted them beforehand. It was coming from a credible source, so I kept them. I mostly want to buy houses vacant, although it's very hard today.
It is
if
hard.
I can, I'll buy them vacant.
Sometimes they don't
Yeah.
even let you see their
No, it's hard.
side
So
of the
if
house.
I
or
can't
their
get into
apartment.
a unit, I don't want to buy. I kind of the house would have to be unbelievable for me to buy it. But
Yeah.
you have
That'd
to be
be a
very
great
careful.
price,
And I have
yeah.
war stories with that too because in New Jersey and New York, you can't get people out. You cannot. They have all the rights. You really can't get people out. I just had a situation now where I got it's a 3-family I own in North Bergen, and I got a call from the building department. This is like about a year ago, and he said, "Hey, I've been looking for you." I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" He's like, you got 12 people living in your 3-bedroom apartment." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, because he thought I was like, it was me. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So going back and forth, I was like, I'll meet you there tomorrow. So I guess the neighbor had called, but this guy was renting rooms. So he was renting,
subleasing.
subleasing
Wow.
rooms.
Like just rooms.
Yeah, so he was, but they had bunk beds in my dining room.
Oh.
So he was really renting rooms. So I get there and I'm like, so when they got there, the building
was
department
renting
with me,
space at
yeah, he
that
was renting
point, right?
space. Yeah, at that
Not even
point,
rooms.
he kind of understood that it was him that was running the business, not me. But so I go outside with him. I was like, what do I do here? And he's like, oh, I was like, give me what you would do. And he was like, if it was me, he's like, I would politely ask them to leave. He's like, tell them at least to get the people out, the illegal people out. He's like, but the truth of the matter is, like, there's an attorney in town. They all go to him. If they go to that attorney, he's going to, hold you up in court. You're going to have to pay money for them to move. He's like, the best thing you can do is just get the people out that aren't supposed to be here and then let this guy's lease run out. So that's what I
And
did.
you knew him or you didn't know?
He was a referral from a friend.
Okay.
But he was running a business.
Are you
So-
still friends with that guy?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it's an interesting story. But everybody else got out. He stayed. He moved out a few months ago, but I still had trouble getting him out. He's like, I want my security deposit back. I'm like, and he had caused a lot of damage to the property. Obviously, I was like, you know what, here, because it was that, or I don't
just
want
to get him
I don't
out,
want
yeah.
to go to court. You're like, I never want to be
Yeah.
in court because they can hold you up forever. So it's very, very important that you have a relationship there with this communication. And that you know who you're renting to, because if you don't, it could really, we really, again, have no rights. New York is worse. I have crazy stories from New York, not from necessarily, I have my own crazy stories, but I have a friend of a friend who had bought a brownstone in Harlem. He had squatters there. It was a single room occupancy brownstone that he was turning into a 3-family. He had people who were living there that hadn't paid the mortgage in 4 years. They wouldn't leave. He decided he was going to turn the electric off, which is illegal, by the way.
You can't do
You
that.
can't do
You
that.
can't turn off.
So they still
electric,
didn't
can't
call
turn
on him.
off
Which, I
water.
don't know why you can't.
Yeah.
If they didn't pay him for years.
No, so they had
matter.
been there for like a year and a half, so he turns the electric off. They still don't leave. He decides he's going to pull the roof off the house because he was going to do it anyway. So he pulls the roof off the house. He ended up going to jail for 6 months. No. You can't do that. So it makes for a great story, but that's not something you could necessarily do. And at that point, that you have no roof, you have no electricity, I guess you leave. But he was still in the wrong. So I would never take it to that extreme, but
people
that
still
might
stay.
be the
They
best
put
story
umbrellas
we
in
ever
there.
heard here.
I
think that story was better than the attorney's story.
You got to be very careful. He went to jail, so you don't want to ever do that.
Oh my God!
But I could see getting to that point where you want to do it.
Yeah, you're
right?
losing money, and
you want to just get out of it. But it's a crazy game.
Yeah.
Did the tenants stay there with no roof with
I
their
don't
blankets
know.
on?
I stopped it. He pulled the roof off.
That was enough.
Yeah, it's enough.
Oh my God,
That's so funny.
Is too funny.
So how many multifamilies do you own? How many Airbnbs do you own?
So I have 15 Airbnbs, and then I have 8 individual multifamilies, and then they're multi-units in the multifamilies. I have 8 individual multifamilies. So I have more Airbnb properties by themselves than I have multifamilies. But I have more multifamily tenants because there are more units than one.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of
Thank you.
You're welcome.
50-50. I'm as diverse as I possibly could be, but I'm not completely. It's still it's still a lot.
Do you have a preference on what you like better, or just
multifamilies
totally different?
are easier day to day. They're more expensive to. The thing that's good about Airbnbs, what people don't realize, is that multifamilies end up being more expensive to fix because when they're problems, they're big problems. With Airbnbs, because you're in them every single week. The cleaners are in them. Yeah. Somebody's in them every single week. You kind of get problems as they're happening. So and you maintain the house. Like when I go to one of my Airbnb properties, when I walk in, I'll find little things everywhere I want to fix, but nothing major. It looks clean. It feels clean. Go walk into one of your multifamily proproperties and see how people live.
Yeah, because a lot of times they don't want to bother you, right? Especially if they're having people there that maybe shouldn't be there, or they're whatever. They don't want to bother you because they want to be good tenants and they don't want you to raise. But sometimes they let it go too long, and then it becomes like a major
When tenant gets
problem.
out, you're going to need to do work almost always.
Yeah. Now, do you go and look at the properties? Every 6 months.
So I'm better about that now. So the Airbnb properties, I try to get there quarterly. Sometimes it's hard, but I try to get there quarterly. But I have somebody on site on the ones that are out of state in every place that I pay something small per month to go check on the house. It costs me a couple $100s a month to have somebody go by, $300 a month some places, and they check. They check after the cleaners check, and so they'll go look at property. So if I can't get there that often, I always have somebody. Right. But I still try to get there quarterly if I can, because again, you'll get to a house and just I have 3 properties in Ocala, Florida, which is kind of like horse country, but they put up this $1 billion equestrian center there, and it brought a lot of Airbnb business in. So my cousin had turned me on to it, and I bought a few properties. They were cheap. They were like around $300,000 each, but I hadn't been there in like a year. So we went down there on my kids' spring break. That's where they spent their spring break. But every house had little things like this needs to be, the deck needs to be refinished. This is falling apart. What's going on here? Like you end up spending a few $1,000s just going there because there's little things that most guests are okay with, but it's not a great feel when you see it yourself.
Right,
so
right. Especially when you see it yourself,
what
you
about
want to make it like you live there.
The multifamilies, it's a good question. So you can't go inside most of the time, obviously, unless there's a problem. But I go by all of them monthly.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I check them out all monthly. Like I just went by 2 today that they need landscaping. They just need cleanup. They just look.
But even if their lease is up, and you can go in, and even though they're going to renew their lease, you can go in at the end of their lease.
100%. Yeah, you just can't walk in on a random day. You kind of have to notify them, like, hey, I want them to come by.
But you can still go if you notify them and say,
hey, you can. With their permission, you can go in. I just can't go in without their permission.
But if they don't give,
they can't open the door.
But if you
and walk
ask them for permission and they say, no, I don't want you to come in, then.
It's kind of a gray area. It's a little bit of a gray.
I want to peek in.
I know it's a little bit of a gray area.
Look what happened to you. You had a gentleman that wanted to sell his house. He rented it out for 7 years. I'll give it to you off market.
You have buyers for it. He's like, I redid it 7 years ago. It's in perfect shape, this and that, whatever. I just don't want to list it because I don't want to spook the renters. Okay, fine, we go in.
A mess, yeah.
A mess wasn't even like how to describe it.
Yeah.
Mold all over the bathroom. The vanity was ripped out whole.
Yeah.
The washer and dryer was right in the middle of the living room. It wasn't even, covered in grease. The whole kitchen was covered in grease. It was so bad. And I'm like, when was the last time you were in that house? He's like, 7 years ago when I redid it. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
He's like, but they're good tenants and they don't do it. I'm like, but they're not good tenants.
I won't buy unless I plan to gut without seeing the units. If I plan to gut, then whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But I'm sure you go into some houses as a flipper and look at stuff and be like, how did they? Why is there a door here and a room here and this? Like, people do crazy things over time. The older the house is, the worse it gets too. Like, the walls get put up and this stuff that doesn't make sense. But
you remember that house I went to, and I was like, "Is this?" I'm like, "I know it's not normal, but we have to get rid of this, right?" When we listed, it was the washer and dryer.
Yeah.
It's literally sitting in the middle of the living room,
room,
upstairs,
right?
because he made his own apartment downstairs, and I was like, "Oh God."
Yeah, people do the craziest things, and renters do the craziest things too, because they sometimes make it like it's their own house, and they just decide
And
to
they
do
don't
whatever.
ask. Like, you're supposed to ask to
right.
paint, right? To change the paint colors and that kind of thing.
yeah,
Like,
people don't ask for anything.
They don't
They,
ask.
No,
they,
they don't ask
they,
for permission,
they
yeah.
just do
They just
whatever
do it and
they
see what
want,
happens, yeah.
and that's it.
No, listen, I've had, I've had people call the health department for reasons because they were trying to miss rent for that month. And the health department will call me back and be like, I had somebody call recently. They said, oh, we've had a toilet bowl broken for 3 months. It's like, I have no record of any toilet bowl
and they
being
didn't even
broken.
ask you. Yeah.
No, they were just looking for, they couldn't pay rent that month. So that was, mental note, this person, we're not renewing the lease when it comes up. You know what I mean? But like, people do crazy things.
That's why
so.
when my mother passed away, we were thinking about renting. We were like, maybe we'll just rent the house out, because a couple people approached us.
Yeah.
And said, well, like, oh, my brother needs it, this one needs it, they'll rent the house out.
Yeah.
You don't even have to get rid of her stuff. You can put it in the attic. I'm like, all right, that's a little too much. She
Yeah, I
just
mean, listen,
passed
it's not
away.
a game for the weak.
And
that's
then
for sure.
we had my cousin's
I'm
wife
glad
was a
you said
realtor.
that.
I didn't have my license at the time, and she's like, you don't want to rent it out. She's like, it's a lot of work,
it's
and
work.
if they don't want to leave, they don't have to leave.
No, and listen, you can hire property management companies, and I've had help there, and I have help there, but they still don't do things the way you're going to do things. You know what I mean? Like
you got to stay on top of it.
talk to property manager, like, oh, you should ignore the tenant the first couple of times they call, because then if you respond too fast, they're going to think you're going to respond like that all the time. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to use that technique. Let's respond when they call.
Then you figure then they're going to say, well, I tried to call him 3 times. And
I don't
he
want
didn't
that
call
either. I want to be responsive. I want to be a good landlord too. At the end of the day, you want
Right,
people to want
right.
to take care of your house because you're doing things the right way. So, it's definitely, but it's not an easy game. And people who think they can get into it, it's not an easy game. Like I tell people all the time, if you don't like talking to people and if you're not handy, then you better figure something out.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna have a problem.
My husband rented when we first met, he owned a house, and then when we got engaged, he moved home and then rented his house out. And the tenants were great. I mean, they had a lot more people living there than they were supposed to.
People like his.
At the
Yeah,
end,
it's
we realized
unbelievable.
it when he went to go sell it, and then he had to come in, and the realtor went in. They were like, it's a lot. But he's like, they were so nice. They were always giving me the rent. I mean, his parents' house was right around the corner, so we drove by every day.
Yeah.
He saw the house, whatever. But he went in a couple times when they called him to fix something, and he noticed so many other things. He's like, why didn't you call me to fix that? I would have come. They're like, oh, we didn't want to bother him. I'm like, yeah, because he didn't want to see the 8 people.
Yeah, 100% right. That's why they didn't want you. Yeah.
Which he's like, I don't even care. He's like, it's still so clean and everything's fine, but they were afraid to call him because they didn't want.
If people are good payers and they're good, most part they're good tenants. I mean, a lot of my properties are local to where I live, so I can drive by a lot of them. At least I can at least check the outside of it. So, but you never really know what's going on inside.
Yeah.
But I like the way you said you got to answer your phone. You got to let the people know, hey, yeah, I'm going to come there. We had a property where we redid the whole house brand new and couldn't sell it, and we said, you know what, let's rent it. We rent it. Now the house is brand new. First week there, the tenant calls up. I have something wrong here. Okay, let's go. Second week, the same. Third week, the dryer doesn't work.
Oh, see, then maybe that guy was right. You shouldn't be.
No, but then the second week, the dryer doesn't work. It's a brand new dryer.
What's
What'd you
going
do?
on? Yeah,
What's going on?
When you know your house like that, too, it's a different story.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right. So then, okay, now the dryer, they broke the dryer. We get a new dryer. Then something else happened, finally we had to say, look, pal, we gave you a brand new house.
Yeah.
Now, this broke. You figure it out.
Yeah, breaking
That's
everything.
it.
It's on you. Yeah, you have to some point.
On
You're right.
you. At some
Because
point,
a lot of times it's the first $100, right, for the repair is on the tenant.
And
but if you're giving somebody something brand new,
right, you don't have to do that.
Pay for everything. Yeah, I agree with you.
You can't do that.
No, you're right. It works both ways, but you have to communicate more than anything. And listen, even when you buy a house, you can always tell when you buy a house you took pride in ownership of that house.
Right.
Always. You'd always tell the little details of stuff that you could see pride in ownership and stuff wasn't neglected. I have one of the houses I bought in South Carolina. the guy had lived there for a long time. It's a beach community, but he had lived there for a long time. He actually moved somewhere else on the island, just into a condo. He was downsizing. He was older. Guy's the best. I still call him to this day and say, "Hey, Dale, this isn't working. This isn't working." He's like, "I'll go by," or "You have to do this," because he kept the house was in very good condition. He knows the house inside and out. He wanted somebody to buy it that would take care of it, and he's still like so. He
still cares about it.
He's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's really been unbelievable.
Probably still cares about.
But you can always tell when somebody takes pride in their house.
Yes. Other times people just they could care less.
Yeah.
Especially us in the business where somebody's selling a multifamily and you go there and you're like, I can't put this house on the market. Are you kidding me?
That's
so
always
I have
a
a
crapshoot.
cousin that she bought a house in Cedar Grove, and it turned out she didn't know at the time. It turned out our cousin on our mother's side. It's her cousins on her other side. So it's like my cousin's cousins on her other side. But we're always, we grew up together.
Plus you're
close
Italian,
together.
you're cousins.
Right, everyone's a cousin.
cousin.
Everyone's a cousin. But they ended up buying their house. So it was like my cousin bought their cousin on the other side's house. Didn't know it. So he was so excited. He's like, "Oh my God." He's like, "I'm so excited Stephanie got the house, this and that." He goes, and it's so happy someone in the family got it, whatever. The most pride we have is that staircase and the banister. And he's like, the wood and this and that. And my cousin's face dropped. And she's like, my daughter painted it all white. And he's like, what? Like, he cannot handle the fact that they went in and painted
house,
it.
right?
But it's in now. Like, the white's
modern.
in, the dark wasn't in.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. I love her house. It's a beautiful house. And it looks good white, but I can see he can't even talk about it. Like if you say, "Oh, I don't want to talk about it," he can't talk about it because he helped
doesn't
stain.
know, right?
His father, I think, built the staircase,
and
the
did all
railing, and he helped stain it, and now it's white. But it's like the pride of ownership. He can't go back.
But it's so hard to own properties. It's so hard to manage properties. It's people always think it's so easy. Hey, I'm buying a multifamily house.
Yeah.
And, I'm gonna
Earn money on your money.
Earn money on my money. And meanwhile, something breaks. They don't realize they got to fix it right away. They don't realize the tenant. Then I'm sure you've had issues where the tenant doesn't want to move out. You have to pay off the tenant
to get them out. Yeah.
Right, to get them out. People don't realize what's involved.
Little things, it's a lot.
The little things where
you have to almost detach yourself emotionally from it, because if you don't and treat it like a business that way,
right,
then you're kind of going to be sunk, because you really have to look at things like that, and it's like this is part of the course of doing business. Yeah, it just really is, and you have no choice.
I've had people where they came in and said, "Okay, I need to get this tenant out." The lease was up, everything was done, and the tenant goes, "I'm not going anywhere."
Yeah.
He's like, "Okay, how much?"
Especially if they know what they're doing, because if they know what they're doing, they can stay forever.
They know their rights.
They know their rights. They know what's going to happen.
That's why I think it was a good thing we didn't rent out the house I grew up in.
You'll
because
never get the people out.
And
you
if someone
won't
was
get them out.
Yeah,
no,
hard.
I had somebody where they offered them, "Okay, you're paying $2,000 a month in rent. I'll give you your $2,000 plus, $3,000 for a security deposit to go move somewhere else, just to get out." And they're like, "No, we want to stay here, but you need to get out. I'm not doing the lease."
I mean, listen,
they'll come back. I want $10,000.
I try to give people like at least 3 or 4 months in advance that I'm not renewing. And it stinks to give people that much heads up, because you don't know what they're going to do to the house. But then I just don't want – hey, I understand you have to look for a property. You have to look someplace to live. It's going to be a long stretch. I have an older tenant in one of my properties in Florida, and he's in his 80s. And I really wanted to sell the property for 4 years. His market is so far under rent. But I just been letting him live. I can't raise because he's on a fixed income. I won't raise. But I had to tell him, when he was renewing his lease, I said, "Look, this is going to be the last lease. I'll let him renew for 2 years." I was like, "I'm going to give you a 2-year lease. I know you need it, but after this, I got to sell the property." So he's like 6 or 7 months away. So I'm hoping he's got some kind of plan. Some plan, because
tell him he can come live with me.
Yeah, I will.
I
know.
Everybody,
I
right?
Terrible.
Just you can keep your stuff with me. If you're not going to close, if we don't close on time, and you need storage. Just bring it to my house.
8 months, we're going to see the 80-year-old man and Nina.
Yeah,
I will. I swear, I'll take it. I feel bad for everybody.
But you're right. There's people out there that don't care. It's just a business, and you know what? You're out, and I don't care anymore.
Can't get out. Yeah.
And there are landlords that don't care about their property. Like you guys have pride.
You're right.
They don't care about their property. They don't care what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
They just don't care. As long as they're getting their rent, they could not care less.
Yeah, and I think that's my problem. That I'm still I want the property to be in good condition no
Yeah.
matter what. I still view it as a long-term asset no matter what it is, so I don't want it to be ruined in any way, shape, or form. Like, I didn't need to go do the landscaping on 2 of my properties today, but I just don't want the landscaping to get out of control.
Got
What
out of
happened?
control, right?
So-
Plus, it makes the neighborhood look
That too.
bad. and
Yeah,
everything
you don't want
else.
people
And,
complaining.
you know,
So you
and
pay
all
for a
this-
cleanup.
right,
Like
pay-
do
pay
a
to
full
clean up.
cleanup. I'll do a spring cleanup again and just make sure everything is kind of the right way. But that's not everybody.
No, I have friends that actually, flip houses too, and they, bought a couple multifamily houses, and the people got foreclosed on. And they feel bad for the people,
Yeah,
like,
it's tough, I know.
what are you
You
going to
did
do,
nothing wrong.
whatever. They
You're right.
did nothing wrong, or, rang the doorbell, talked to the people, and said, you know what, let us in, let us take a look. It needed work. They did the work on the property, let the people stay in the house, and the people were like, no, we want to pay you rent, whatever. Okay, we're not signing a lease, but we want to sell the property, and we'll try to sell. They call me, we'll try to sell it to an investor
Who's
so
gonna-
you
wants
can
to keep
stay
it.
in
Yeah.
the property. And
right.
both properties worked that way.
They worked out like that.
It worked
yeah.
out. You
it's tough when
tried,
you're doing that.
It's tough, yeah, but you're trying to still, like you said, you want to help the people.
Yeah, I want to have a good relationship.
You're not like,
sure.
hey, I'm just going to throw you out now. I
Yeah.
don't care. You fell,
Because you can't buy a house like that. If someone's in the middle of a lease and you buy the house, you have to keep their lease. But if it's foreclosed on,
right, you got to go
then-
through the
Yeah.
process.
Right.
You got to go through the
Yeah, I
whole
mean,
process.
I'll almost always ask for property delivered vacant if possible. Or I'll ask the second I go to look at the property, like, hey, what's the situation with the leases? This guy's month to month. This is this and this is that. I was like, all right, I want the property delivered vacant. So usually that'd be easy. Now it's not so easy anymore.
no, I feel like it takes so long, and sometimes it's like after 90 days or more. Sometimes people back out. They're like, you know
yeah,
what, forget it. I
I
don't
can't
buy
do it. Yeah, it's hard.
What was the most you paid off somebody just to move?
I think I gave somebody $18,000 once to get out because I couldn't get them out. It was a lease that had to be renewed, and I had to get them out, and that was the negotiation price, but it was expensive. So that's an expensive story. But long term, it was worth it for me to do it, but I just couldn't get them
Yeah.
out. You couldn't get, and that happens. Like again,
So did you offer them X amount?
goes.
and
They
then-
asked for 40. I came back at
Yeah, like you
10.
negotiated
Yeah,
the whole time.
And we ended up at 18, and that was with the security deposit coming back, so it was probably a little bit less than that. But yeah, it was
That's a lot of
expensive.
money.
It's expensive.
But imagine it. You own the house.
Yeah.
Hope everybody's listening. How easy it is to be a landlord and
Gotta
flip
pay to get
and
them
buy
out.
houses and everything. You own the house, but yet to get your tenant out, it costs you $18,000.
And the thing you should really know more than anything before you buy a rental property is what's the town rental laws. Some towns are much more protective than other towns of the renters. Like, go try to buy a multifamily in Union City in New Jersey. Forget it. Because they're very, very protective of the renters, and you can't. Everything's rent control, and you can't raise, and so you can't. So you have to be very conscious of what's going on in the town. What are the regulations in the town before you buy? And that's mistakes I've made before too. I didn't know what it looked like. So I have a checklist I go through in my brain before I do any of this stuff at this point before I buy a property because
But it took you a long time to get there,
a
right?
lot of mistakes. Yeah,
Yeah.
you make a lot of mistakes, and I think that's how you learn.
how
I
you
would say,
learn. I was just
but
gonna say.
yeah,
That's how you
I
learn,
wasn't
right.
a straight line by any means.
Right, and that's what we try to tell everybody. I get calls all the time. Hey, I want to buy a foreclosure. I want to buy a rental property. Wait a minute. Let's sit down
And talk about it. Yeah,
Let's
100%.
talk about it.
You don't know what that entails.
You don't know what it
Correct.
entails. What's going to happen? How it's going to what's
Yeah.
going to go
What-
on.
Yeah, there's a
Foreclosure.
house on the market now. It's in foreclosure, and the owner's not allowing any showing, so you can't go inside
You
the
can't
house.
go in,
And
right.
it says inspections, virtual inspections are okay. How are you supposed to do a
Virtual inspection, you can't.
You
How are
can't.
you supposed to do that?
People just buy today. There's
You have
like we were
no
discussing it
idea what
before.
that house is.
There's no inventory out there. Everybody wants to buy a house. There's investors out there, and you have new investors coming out there
Yep.
that have no clue how everything's done. You have foreclosures or a bank, for instance, a bank foreclosed on a property, okay? The old owner still lives in the property. They're selling the house now. The bank is selling the house. You can't go inside and look at it, but you'll have an investor say, "Okay, I think it's worth it.
Right, 'cause they know
I'm
the
going to buy it.
area
They
and
know
how
the
many
area, or whatever."
bedrooms.
So they buy the house.
I mean, if you go to the foreclosure auctions at any
Or
of the
the-
counties,
right.
if you go to those auctions, the same people are there every single week.
Yeah.
And the guys who buy the houses are always
They-
the same guys.
Yeah.
Right. They know what, or you'll get new guys.
Yeah,
that go there.
right.
And you'll see the new guys going there.
You'll know them,
thinking-
yeah.
You'll know them right away.
Yeah.
And you'll know the mistakes they made.
For sure.
And then you'll never see
No,
them
if the
again.
main guys aren't on a house, there's a reason
Right,
they're not on
there's
the
a
house.
reason
Yeah, like
they're-
that's a
they're
bit.
not
Follow
on
the
that
pros in that
house.
situation. Like
There's a reason they're not
Yeah.
on that house. But I've had people where they bought a house and it was a bank foreclosure. The bank already foreclosed, so they bought it through the bank with the old owner in there. So they buy the house. Now they say, okay, they go ring the doorbell to the owner, and he goes, "What do you want?" He goes, "We own the house." Okay, and
yeah, what do you want to do?
what do you want to
for me?
do? And they're like, "I want to come inside. Get out of here. I'll call the cops." And they have the right to
Yeah.
call
Yep.
the cops and get you off
crazy.
their property. Now you have a couple choices, right, Ralph? Where it's either you go through the sheriff's department again, and
Or you give
do
them
it-
money.
or you give them money.
Those are your two choices, yeah.
Those are your two choices. And the buyer's like, "What do you mean I got to give them money? I own the house. I'll shut the water off. I'll do this."
Can't do any
You
of it.
can't do any of it. And I've seen somebody give 10,000, 20,000,
Yeah.
30,000 just to get them out.
But now this case where it's on the MLS, it's
Doesn't
on the
matter.
market, but so they could destroy the entire they could just
Yep.
Yeah.
destroy the entire.
And you-
house.
I mean, you
If
don't see it as
couldn't
much
do
anymore, but yeah.
inspections and you couldn't go in the house, and you're just buying this house, and these people are still in there. You don't know when they're going to leave, but you don't know if they're going to take a sledgehammer
I
to
just
all
think
the
that's why-
pipes, right?
Well, that's the biggest thing too. If you can't get into a house and you can't look in the walls, I mean, there could be so much damage in there. Electric and plumbing problems will cost you hundreds of
Yeah, and
thousands of
they
dollars.
won't
Yeah,
even let you
yeah.
walk the property. Do not walk the property.
Yeah,
you
you
just
can't.
drive
Oh, yeah,
by.
yeah,
How are you
yeah.
supposed to look at?
Or if you park your car in their driveway, they can take their car, put it in front of the driveway, call the cops, and get your car towed.
Yeah.
You're trespassing.
Yeah, they
Oh,
can't. You can't. I think you have to be more patient than that, and that's really what it comes down to patience. Is that
Patience and
just not buy something impulsively because you
Right.
shouldn't. I always tell people this. I don't gamble with real estate because you shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
I understand this may be great and it may make this much money, but the statistics are saying that it's an unknown, right? So why am I going to get? I don't gamble, so I'm willing to
And
take.
if you're going into it with that feeling of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
then you probably shouldn't do it.
I tell everybody, I say, look, if you're going to buy that house sight unseen, think about the worst case scenario.
Right.
Kitchen, 3 bathrooms.
Yeah, what's that going to cost?
Siding,
Yep.
whatever. It's going to
If-
cost you
If
150,
you have to update
200,000.
the
Yep.
plumbing,
Plumbing
if you have,
and
there's
electric.
something wrong
So
with
I
it,
say
there's
go
a septic system.
Right, go on the high end, and then figure out
Go
what
from
we're
there,
going to
yeah.
sell
And
it
usually
for.
it's forget it.
And it's not going to make.
No,
make
you're right.
any-
Makes
It's
sense.
not going to make any sense, and that's it. But I've seen people pay a lot of money just
Yeah,
to get
I'm
somebody out
with
of the
you.
house, and the people don't want to move out of the house, and they're like, "Well, it's not my problem." Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's your problem.
It's your problem.
didn't know it
now.
was, but
You
it
didn't-
is.
You didn't know, but now it is, and that's why we try to tell you it's not easy. Like you said, Ralph, you need patience. Patience is everything in the real estate business.
Yes.
You got to
long
relax.
game.
You can't buy it on impulse.
Well, you need money
can't-
first, right? And then you
yeah,
need
that too.
patience.
But it's still a
No,
long game though.
but Ralph will lend you the money.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Thanks,
He's
Ralph.
got a mortgage. But Ralph, you also wrote a book, right?
Yes, yeah. It's called The Growth Trap. I put it out in 2022. It was a Wall Street Journal bestseller, USA
bring a
Today
copy?
bestseller. I should have. I'm sorry. I'm going to get you guys copies. I promise.
Look at that.
Signed copy.
I don't read books, but that book. I would read.
Thank you. But it's kind of my story. It's just it's my story and other people's stories that kind of growth traps. A growth trap I consider a growth trap is we're kind of born and through adolescence we kind of grow, learn, and get bigger, stronger, and faster automatically. And then we get to a point in life where it doesn't come so easy, and people get stuck. So that's kind of a growth trap, and I've been through a million of them. So I talk about mine in the book and other people like me in the book that have gone through these things and
that.
how you kind of avoid them, even though I still land in them all the time.
That's
and,
okay.
Yeah,
That's 'cause you're
I know how to
still-
get out of them. Yeah, you're still trying to grow. I'm always trying to grow.
Yeah.
So, that was a good experience. It's out now. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, kind of wherever you get books.
So
Oh,
should we
nice.
buy it on Amazon?
I
or
will
you're
get you
gonna
guys a
give us
copy. Yeah, I'm gonna give you a copy.
Okay.
That's what he was getting at. In case you didn't notice.
Okay, we're going to get a copy. That book
It's very
I'll,
smooth with that one.
I'll actually read. But I always loved real estate myself. That was the big thing, growing up and, again, watching my parents buy the first house after a couple of years, familiarly the second house. And then I decided, you know what? And that's what made me get into real estate. And I enjoy it every day. And I actually, it might sound corny or whatever, but I like trying to educate buyers
I
or
do too, yeah.
investors or, you know, try to help them out the best I can
right way,
and
yeah.
give them my advice.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and Nina, we talk about it all the time, we'll tell people and convince them not to do it because we don't
Yeah.
think it's a great idea. But yet they still want to do it. And
People want to hear what they
And
want
all
to hear
you can-
sometimes.
They want to
Right.
hear what
Yeah.
they
And you
want
know
to
what?
hear.
If they want
but
to, that's okay too, as long as you gave them all the information
You do use
to
due
make their
diligence, yeah.
decision. You know, it's maybe not something I particularly would do
Right,
in most
right.
situations, but if they have all the information, they still want to do it and they understand it.
Yeah.
I had somebody want to buy a multifamily. It was like 8 units, and it made no sense at all. Ralph.
Yeah. I run into that a lot. Yeah, they don't really look at it that way.
They
They just
didn't
hear
look
8
at
units.
it.
Yeah.
Right, it's 8 units. I
That's a
just
lot.
want to know that I bought an 8-unit
Yeah.
apartment building. Okay, but you're going to be foreclosing on that 8-unit
All they're
apartment
thinking about is
building.
the rent. That's all they're
Correct.
thinking
Yeah.
about.
The rent and saying, okay, I own an apartment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
y-
And they look at everything at like 100% upside and no downside. Like if I raise these rents or if I do this, but what about the opposite side of it? So, yeah, I'm the same as you. I'm trying to be transparent about all the mistakes I've made. If you ask me, I'll tell you. But you're right. Sometimes with that stuff, people just want to hear what they want to hear,
They
and they're
wanna
going to
hear
buy
what-
it anyway.
Yeah. I try to, look at everything and, hey, it could go this way, it could go that way, it can come down, it can come up. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Can I take a chance on it? Don't take a chance on it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you always got to go with your gut.
Yep.
If your gut's telling you, for some reason,
Don't do
the
it.
deal might look unbelievable,
Yeah.
but your gut's saying don't do it, let somebody else do it.
I'm
Listen
like that
to your
too.
gut.
Yeah, if I had a flip recently we were going to do, and it was like, maybe it can work out, maybe it can't. I'm like, I'm out. Like, I don't want to have a maybe. You know what I mean? There's no reason to. So just go on to the next project. I'm going to be stuck
Right.
in this for 8 months. At the end of the 8 months, it's going to look like I wasted my time for 8 months. I don't want to do that. So
Yeah.
you got to be willing to walk away.
Now, do you have realtors that'll call you and say, hey, I got this great deal for you?
I do, yeah. Well, yeah. Whether it's a flip or it's a long-term property or it's an Airbnb, a lot of people call me the Airbnbs right now, and they think this is a great Airbnb, and I'm like, it's not for this is the reason. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I want more people to call me with deals,
Right.
But
It's gotta make
it's
sense.
probably only 10% of them that actually make any sense. So
And they probably don't know as much as you know. So they're
No.
thinking in their head,
Yeah.
I'm giving them a great opportunity. And you're like,
I think they
been there,
legitimately
done
think
that.
they are correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
but most of the time it's not. But that's okay too. I still want to hear the deals. I get called, it depends. In 2020, 2021, I couldn't get anybody to call me for anything because everything was moving so fast. Now I'm getting more phone calls, again, but not as much as I would have in the past. But those are always good to look at least.
Yeah, I'll get calls from people too saying the same thing. Hey, Vito, you know anybody that's got this deal? It's off market, whatever. And you look at it and you say, you know what? And the people calling you,
Yeah.
and you're like, if it's such a great deal, why aren't you buying it?
Yeah, exactly. That's
You know?
that's the other thing too. Yeah.
Or you'll get somebody, you're showing them a property and they'll be like, okay, yeah, they want 500. I think it's only worth 300.
Yeah.
Let's write up an offer for 300. I know you can do it, whatever. And then you look at them again. You say, if I knew they're going to sell it for 300,
sell
do
it to
you
you?
think I would be bringing you here right now for
Let's
300,000?
not waste each other's time.
Let's not waste each other's time. But that's what we're seeing a lot of.
Yeah.
People just want to buy just to say they buy. But again, I think we're going to see a little shift in the market.
I do too.
And who knows when it's going to happen? Or
I think you're going to see something. It won't be what it was, but I think
right,
but I think it'll be something.
You'll see
I'm in
something.
agreement.
Today, at least the bonds were rallying.
Yes,
and
yeah.
they came
Today was a good
down.
day.
Today was a good day. Hopefully, Nina, and with the bonds rallying, that means the interest rates might come down a little bit.
Oh, excuse me, I knew
Oh,
that.
okay. I just want.
Why are you
I just,
acting like I didn't know what that
No,
I
I
didn't know
knew
what
you.
that didn't know that. Did I blank out? Did I stare like
yeah,
this?
yeah. I stare like, what is he talking about? But overall, I think the market's still healthy, but let's see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Hopefully,
Hopefully.
we'll go.
We're
there.
hopeful.
Yep. So Ralph, I want to say thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys for
you.
having
You're
me.
so good.
Thank you.
I learned a lot. Hopefully you learned a lot
did.
today. And what did you think about this?
This was great. It was a good conversation. I like when we can just have a conversation about the market. So if we were sitting here without the mics, it would have been the same conversation.
Same
Right.
conversation,
Yeah, so it's good.
right?
Yeah, it's always
But
a good time.
It's always doing it this way, no editing, no nothing. Hey, it's just
Great.
A table. We drink some wine, even though you don't drink. I know you don't drink, but at least I drank. I want to give you a
thank you.
Vino with Vito.
Now I really
t-shirt.
feel bad I didn't bring a
See,
gift.
so
Thank
so
you so
hopefully
much.
now you're gonna
This is awesome.
you're gonna give us your
Thank you so much.
your book. But one thing I want to tell you: don't wear that in the park in Fairfield, New Jersey, because the squirrels will come after you. Thank you again, Ralph.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
guys.
much
I
for
appreciate
coming.
it. Thank
And
you.
and on that note, one day, and that day will come when you need to buy or sell a house. And when that day does come, you will call the godfather of Northern New Jersey real estate, Vito Cantuzzi.
Or Nina D'Alessio when he's unavailable.
And we're going to put this right in here.
Hey, why are there so few corks and so many bottles?
Bottles. We're taking the corks with us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
I
Ralph.
appreciate it.